Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Steven Universe episode review. This one's going to be for Season 5, Episode 13, 14, 15, and 16. And we got Your Mother and Mine, The Big Show, Pool Hopping, and Letters to Lars. It started off very promising and had its moments throughout, but I think only Your Mother and Mine, I think, was really notable episode. Other than that, I think it brought back a lot of the problems that the show sort of has of just like, okay, we're finally building up to something and let's focus in on what the residents of Beach City are doing because we've got nothing else important going on. Like, there is the plot of like, okay, Lars is on his way back to Earth, which is somewhat interesting to focus on, and it at the very least I think presents some form of reason for why these specific episodes are kind of a little bit more Beach City focused, in that we're sort of just waiting for Lars to return to Earth, and then maybe we can actually do something once he's back. But they're right now sort of like just stuck until they decide to actually, bring him back. It's they did a good job in that sense of like, he was in the first episode, he was in the last episode of this group of four. But I think especially the second episode just being like, okay, like I like Sadie as a character, I do. But the timing on most of these episodes just feels very off. Like, as far as I'm aware, Season 5 is the last season of Steven Universe. I don't know what they've confirmed about that just yet. But there's still a couple of episodes left this season at the very least. We don't really know what they're doing exactly going forward. Are we building up to a finale or what? But it definitely feels like this show, Steven Universe, is kind of two different shows in one. One of them is the interesting kind of gem-focused, like, mystery, the setup of this kind of, to some degree, like intergalactic conflict, the diamonds and so on. And then there's the more like, let's just deal with kind of random characters to a degree and have the fun Beach City episodes. And for the most part, these two shows do not overlap at all. They're two completely different things. And just the timing on when they decide to basically do each of them is so often, like, I think very poorly done. The overall pacing, plotting of this show is, I'd honestly say, bad at this point. I think it is kind of quite badly paced and just, I think, written and plotted out. What they do well is that they often write the characters and just like interactions between characters pretty good, in that the Garnet was I think a positive of these four episodes, getting focus again after not really being in it all that much of late. So the first episode focusing on her, the third episode focusing on her, was actually really good because, especially that third episode, while I think ultimately not having too much impact on really where things are going, was a nice little, I suppose, update on the Garnet-Steven relationship, and I suppose where Garnet is at. And then the first episode was like, here is Garnet sort of in her element, seeing all these unique gems that are exactly the sort of thing that she likes and is very passionate about. And so seeing her like compliment them not kind of them taking it as like her insulting them, but it's actually just this honest thing that they've never received a compliment before because Homeworld just sees them as basically outcasts. And that was a kind of a quite interesting thing to bring them together, in that obviously what we're setting up is that once Lars comes back, our kind of group of like key characters sort of suddenly grows, and that we have all these extra gems involved. Lars is now actually a part of the conflict because he knows about what's going on, and that's where I think, at least we're building towards something, that when Lars comes back, we've got more than one of our sort of main human characters involved in all of this, which actually works out, I think, fairly well. And then her, I suppose, in that first episode, telling them the story of Rose, I thought it was very interesting. It was all honestly like a bit random, just like, oh, whoa, she's finally doing this story that she hasn't even told to basically Steven. She's now telling to like us as the audience, as well as all these other characters who don't know about what actually happened. Now, admittedly, they sort of present a little bit of kind of conflicting information in that I think you're meant to sort of look at this as being a somewhat biased view of, like, Garnet obviously supports what Stephen's mother kind of did, and perhaps doesn't know the full exact details, exact sort of emotions of everything that went on in those final moments. Whereas I think Stephen is maybe beginning to learn the truth about some of those moments, and that it maybe wasn't as just clear cut as this story makes it out to be. That I suppose, the Homeworld's version of the story, that, like, Rose is some sort of a tyrant who's, like, an off color in some way. Her origin is like some crazy sort of situation where she's like a rogue batch of Quartz or something like that, and is seen as the biggest villain in the history of Gems. Whereas Garnet's version is obviously the, like, go-go rebels kind of version of just, like, she's the perfect hero in a way, did what she had to do to end the war, and, you know, learned what it was to kind of embrace the life on Earth. I suppose once we finally get the truth of the story, it'll be somewhere in the middle. I think we need to, I suppose, characterize, like, Pink Diamond a bit more. I think we have to, I suppose, get into, you know, Rose Quartz's head a bit more in that sort of situation to get the truth of it all coming out. But they seem to very much be, like, going for the fact that, like, okay, right now, like, Rose was actually the one who killed Pink Diamond. But of course, there's also the whole, like, Pearl, like, that theory is still out there, and I think it's still open because of, like, other scenes that have sort of hinted and suggested at it. So I think that's interesting, and I actually appreciated that they just gave us that full flashback of basically giving us a very quick rundown of how things went. Rose Quartz was just one of the gems that, like, Pink Diamond had, taking over her first colony, and she started to see Earth for what it actually was. Didn't full-on rebel initially, but basically made a plea to, you know, spare Earth, don't make this a colony, move on from here, and do this somewhere else. And apparently Pink Diamond refused, and this is what kind of caused the full-on rebellion. They're obviously, I think, missing some of the darker aspects of, like, a war starting, whereas they seem to be more like, oh yeah, heroic, it all just came together and this happened. Especially, like, towards the end, where they're just like, the diamonds came together and ended things, and it's just like, there's a couple of things missing from that story, in that, like, obviously we see, like, Rose kind of protecting, like, the obvious characters that we know of, like, but was the interpretation there that they did something that just destroyed all of the other gems on the planet or something like that? That's the question, and I suppose the other thing here is, like, do we even see humans in the... Oh no, we did see humans in the kind of flashback scenes with Rose, so I was wondering about the timing of that. So I suppose it still doesn't, like, exactly confirm to us, like, how long ago exactly this stuff was, but it's interesting. But there's definitely still more of that story to come out, but it was good that we did get it. Lars continues to be, I think, fun, because they actually have given him some good development, kind of being up in space, being the captain of this crew, and I think they've set up fairly well that his return is going to be a pretty impactful thing. Of course, the relationship with his parents, relationship with Sadie, how they adapt to the fact that he's different now and kind of has these other friends, is going to be a slightly different character going forward, and we'll see how exactly that change is kind of adapted to once he's back. But I like that Lars has kind of undergone such a big change over the course of the series. Like, from the start, they give him, like, an emotional core, of course, but he's borderline, like, unlikable in certain instances, and they do that, I think, on purpose, so that his big development here is extremely notable, and in his return is actually going to, I think, create some interesting character dynamics once he's back. And then, like I said before, he's now involved in the plot. He knows about the gems. There's no need to fill him in on all that much. They note the fact that he's learned about the gems kind of like separately, but he's not familiar with like who's Peridot. And Steven's just like, oh yeah, now that you're aware of all this stuff, like I'll have to introduce you to like Peridot and so on. So that's another setup of just like some of those characters who just have never interacted, what we're going to do with them. So that's that. The second episode, as I said, the Sadie one, it was interesting enough. They dealt with like some of the issues that Sadie's having with her mother, potentially getting too involved in her life, wanting the freedom, but then realizing that she actually wants her mother to be involved. It's just not in the like taking over things way. So it was a nice episode. As I said, the timing on it was kind of not ideal, but just showing that, you know, Sadie has kind of found a way to thrive even without Lars, making different decisions and basically doing what's kind of best for herself, I suppose. Greg becoming the band's manager is like a cool little subplot that the band is successful and so on. Again, how will Lars incorporate back into the group now? Will the relationship between Lars and Sadie kind of, you know, step up again and so on? That's, I think, stuff to be excited for. The third episode, as I said, bit of a weird one in that it's like a Steven and Garnet like character focus episode, and they focus a lot on like a different approach to like Garnet's like a future vision of basically her trying to. By the end of the episode, she explains it kind of differently. She initially is just like, oh, I'm just trying to be random, but then later on gives a deeper meaning to what she's doing of like, the reason I'm trying to affect things in such a way so that like, she's sort of trying to attune her future vision so that she can better predict when very unusual kind of switches down the kind of timelines are about to happen, which she reveals is mainly because Steven has constantly, I suppose, altered things from the way she would usually expect him to do. So she's really been unable to predict a lot of Steven's decisions, and she thinks she needs to adjust her future vision to account for that, when the only thing she actually needs to account for is the fact that Steven's not a kid anymore and has grown up to the point where he can actually make good decisions. And it was just meant to be this moment of kind of like, here's a sort of mother type figure in Steven's life. Her accepting that he is now in this sort of important role within like the galactic affairs to a degree, and now she should be able to, I suppose, better understand and predict what he's actually able to do. I suppose if we just had this development and potentially some of the gems are still like keeping things from Steven, that sort of creates a little bit of a contradiction of like, oh yeah, we respect that you're better, like you understand things better now, but we're still not going to tell you the truth about what happened in the past. Not exactly sure when that exactly is going to happen, and what's going to like cause the truth to come out to a degree. But yeah, it was fun, cute with the cats and kind of just some of the fun things that they tried to do with just the jokes of like, we're going to do something and we're going to do it in the most random way possible, and like call to order pizzas and have the pizzas just like delivered to the pizza place, and it's just like, so for collection, and it's just like, we got you. That is the most random thing. Like it was fun for sure, but I think the takeaway was just kind of like, could that not have just been like an aspect of a previous episode? Did that need to be a full episode in and of itself? The last one I think is probably like the weakest of the episodes, because they even at the end of it kind of say that like, okay, the structure of this episode was stupid. Steven sends Lars a letter, but then it's revealed by the end of the episode that the narration that we're hearing of the letter being read out is actually Steven on the top of Lars' head reading the letter that he just gave to him out loud. And it's just like, okay, that's a fun gag, but you base the episode around a letter as just this sort of recap thing for Lars to kind of get him up to speed. It's nice in the sense that like he's not going to come back and immediately be surprised by like everything new that's happened. It was just kind of weird how it was meant to be recapping everything to Lars, but then it ended up being like the old mayor's sort of episode of like, oh, here's this subplot of the mayor not knowing what to do now, but then he finds out what to do and that the donut shop doesn't have anyone working for it anymore. He's found something to do by actually being the person who runs the donut shop while everyone's gone, which sort of solves that problem of like, there is now someone working in one of the main locations we tend to go to. Other than that, I suppose there was the scene of everyone else organizing like what Beach City is going to do if anything goes wrong. That I think made sense now that they're sort of aware of like gem stuff and that, yeah, potentially Earth's going to be attacked again or something like that will happen. What do we do when that happens? And they dealt with communication, you know, food stocks and stuff like that, and it was just a quick recap episode. I suppose it is very much like set up for stuff to come, that once Lars gets back, I assume there'll be an episode or two that's still not super intense before whatever happens with regards to how we're going to lead to getting towards like the finale type stuff. But yeah, so I don't think this was the worst batch of episodes, but I also don't think it was particularly amazing. I really enjoyed the first episode, Your Mother and Mine, and then the other ones were just kind of like, you know, good in their own way, but the problem with the show, I think, remains like the pacing of episodes, the timing of certain episodes, how they're choosing to just plot out the series, and then the scheduling as well, I think remains a big problem. That like the last episodes came out in January, and this is right we're nearly in April now. This is when we get this group of episodes. I think we know that we're getting another batch of episodes somewhat soon. I haven't checked exactly if we know the specifics, but it seems like their plan is to air like a couple of groups of episodes somewhat soon. So hopefully we'll get news on like if there's going to be another season, or if this is going to be the building up to like the series finale or not. But yeah, they're my thoughts on the recent 4 episodes of Steven Universe. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on these 4 episodes. Which episode was your favorite? Do you agree with what I had to say about them? Disagree? Let me know. But yeah, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.